So there's a couple things you can do to log in. I just type in Adobe Express. You can log in using the waffle. So there's a lot of processes there. So go ahead and log in. You hit the plus sign, and then you're going to click on Square. And this is going to be what I call the canvas. So you're going to work your way through this logo. Everybody needs to do it. So I'm kind of navigating around Adobe Express. We're going to use it a lot. It is a part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. What I'm doing here is looking at my brands, but the first thing you're going to do is click add your text. After you add your text, you're going to go down and you're going to find your fonts. You can add more fonts. You can use the fonts that are there. My recommendation is use a font that has a bold type, not more of a cursive or really thin. It needs to be bold. That way, you can do what I require for this project. Again, everybody's recreating their logo in the way that I need you to do it, because we're going to use this as a descriptor, as a signature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type I'm going to bold it and type my first letter of my first name. So in this case, I'm going to type J. So I will double click that. And also what I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at the different colors that I want to use. Myself, I have created the Mary E. Britton branding colors that you see, the school color hex codes with the navy and the light gray and all that stuff. So that being said, if you want to create your own library, this is how you do it. You hit the drop down and select a library and relabel that Mary E. Britton or MEB, color scheme or color swatch, whatever the case is. I put colors and logos. Okay. And then I hit create. Now, this is just an option. You don't have to do this. You can always look at the hex code and just add it as long as you know it. So it'll always be there on the wall as a demonstration for you to see this hex code. So in this case, this is what I call the Mary E. Britton palette. A palette is a group of colors, kind of like you're in visual art class. You have a palette of colors, right? All right, so that's what we're doing. So now let's get into the part where we're going to do the actual logo. So now I'm adding the J, and then I'm using the resize bars to make them larger. Again, sometimes you got to click off of the letter so you can move the whole thing around. So I'm going to make it as large as I can on that square canvas, the square white box. Okay. So at that point, I'm going to, manipulate the figure there, that J. And then now I'm going to figure out what color I want. So I can go with a swatch. You can go to custom. You can go whatever you want to do. Okay. Here's the key. You need to make sure whatever you do with this, you're going to duplicate this letter after you get it set like you want. Okay. You're going to duplicate this letter, and I'll show you that how it works here. And we'll talk about some key combo shortcuts that we're going to use throughout this process. Okay. Okay. So what I did there is I selected the J and hit Control D to duplicate it, and then I added my letter of my last name, which is an M. Okay. So now I got my initials up here. I'm going to move this over. Remember, if you hit the arrow, you can nudge it. And if you notice here in this case, the M is slightly off the canvas. That's okay, because we're going to group it. I'm just kind of playing around right now. It's not going to be always a quick process. You look at your neighbor and see what they think. And so now that I have what I feel like is going to be somewhat something to keep, what I did there is I hit Control A to select all. And then if you notice there, it says group, or you can hit Control G. So Control A is select all. Control G is to group. So now that I have them grouped, I can resize it, I can move them around, and they're going to be just like that. So now the next step is I'm going to add the rest of my name. So this is what I want to require for everyone in the class. I want to make sure everybody's following the same process. I'm going to go over several different things, but so you're going to look at this, and as you continually go through, everybody's going to be creative on their own. But I want you to make sure you have your first initial and your last initial. You know how to control all, which is select all. You know how to control G, which is group. You're grouping two items together. So if you had a bunch of other things, you hit control A and then control G, it would group them all. So that works pretty well. So now we're getting ready to go to the next part where we're getting ready to add the rest of our name in the uh, the J and the M. Okay. So the key there is I'm going to resize it to make sure that it's on the canvas. In this case, I was kind of had second thoughts on what I want to do with the M, so I ungrouped it so I can move it around a little bit more. And then again, what I just did there is control A and then control G. So now I'm back to grouped again. So then I'm going to resize it or move it back over to the canvas. So now I've got it centered on the canvas. So in this case, I'm going to show you a couple of options, just what Adobe Express has to offer. I think it's pretty cool in this case. So I'm going to select this, and then if I go over here beside the blue, I can do an outline color, and I'm just showing you like this is what it looks like if I were to do an outline color, but that's behind the M. So I'm not going to use an outline color per se on this one. So the next step is to just kind of showing you the process, the options, things that you can do. Okay. So let's get into adding the rest of my name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to add text. Okay. And I'm going to change the font so it contrasts where there's a difference between the blue and the other letters that I'm using. So whether it be a lighter color, whether it be a darker color, in this case, I'm using like a more of a lighter green, like a lime green, if you will, because it stands out. It contrasts really well with blue. So you think about your color wheel, orange and blue, yellow and blue, think about, just different teams and how they have different color schemes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the rest of my name inside of my first letter. So it spells Jeremy. I don't need to put the J because the J is already there. So I'm centering that. If you notice, I'm kind of working my way in there, and then I'm going to double click on that and check out what would it look like if I were to outline it in something. So let's say I'm going to outline it in gray or black or whatever. So that looks pretty cool. And then you can also flip that if you want to see what it looks like. So in this case, I've got my outline. I hit enter, and then I'm spelling the rest of my name. Now, here's the cool thing. It is going to go outside of my J, but I'm going to fix that. Okay. So the way we're going to fix it first is I want to center align it because it's left aligned right now. So in this case, I want to center align it. So I need to highlight my name and go over and check the align to center. That way it looks really good. Okay. If you go left, you go right, but I like to do it center because it just makes more sense to me. It looks better to me. It's more visibly and visually pleasing. Okay. So that's where I'm at. Then I can just resize it to fit inside the J. Okay. Resize it like you want it. And then once you get it sized to where it will fit inside the J, you got those little blue lines that are guidelines that will kind of snap your name back in there in the center spot. So now that I have my name there's a couple other things you can do. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to effects and I'm going to go down. You can use any effects you want. I like to use glow because by clicking on glow or heavy or whatever, you see how there's like a glow behind it. And it's like a black glow. So if you click on those lines, it'll give you a different color scheme. So I could do white, I could do black, I could do any kind of other yellow, I could do any complementary colors with my effects. Okay. So remember, this is something you're going to use on all of your work going forward during this semester. Okay. All right. So here's the next step. Now I've selected the EREMY. Okay. So I'm going to use the same technique by hitting Control D to duplicate the EREMY, right? I'm going to do that to spell my last name, which is I've already got my MCGUIRE. So you got your first name and your last name. Okay, so I'll hit Control D. It duplicates it. You work smarter, not harder. Now watch what I do here. What I did, I can go straight up and down, or if I want, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of my name in there, and I know it's going to be larger than the space that I have provided. So all I got to do is resize. That's all I've got to do. I'm just going to resize to where it fits inside of that vertical part of the M. Not a big deal. Okay. So in that case, I can do that. I can move it over if I want, because the vertical part of the M is slanted. I can move that around a little bit and slant that so it fits perfectly inside the M. So if you choose to do that, you can. Know that that's a like the little circle, as I call it, circle arrow will help you move it as you need to, so you can kind of see get it fit to where you want. And now that you have your name inside of your initials. So over on the left, I'm going to select elements, and then these are like design assets, and I'm going to type in the word circle, just a regular circle. And after I click on the circle, I'm going to go and view all of the design assets of the circle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some things behind the initials and what I created. So I'll put a circle right there, and then I'm going to try to center it. And now, right now, the circle is over top. So I'm going to move it around, get it to where I like it. Again, everybody's got a little different creative energy. You do what you need to do. This also helps to tie the logo down, because remember, you're going to put it on other things. But in this case, I'm going to move this. These are my layers. I've got to move this circle behind everything. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can double click and hit send to back, and it'll send everything to back. And if you notice on the right, on the layers, it's now behind the J and the M. Okay. So you got to be real careful. If you make a mistake, you can hit Control Z. So I can go Control Z to go backward. And then because I needed to resize that circle. Right now, if you want to just grab it from the right and pull it underneath, you can. Sometimes I just right click, or I think it's double finger tap, and you put it behind the J and the M. So you can get any asset. You can get all kinds of different things. You notice I'm kind of uh, just basically resizing it to of my liking. This is not something that I'm going to dictate to you guys. You all, this is where this becomes a project where it's more fun, because you can create the colors you want, you can create the shapes you want, and these assets are called stock footage. That's the stock footage that's copyright free. It's anybody can use them, right? So the send to back option is a really good option. And again, we're using this because we're going to get into our Creative Cloud with Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and After Effects. Now, the great thing about this is you can add more than one. You can add as many design assets as you want. Just be careful, because you don't want to make it too crowded. You don't want to make it too clustered. You want to make it to where it looks good, and this is where you're going to lean on your shoulder partner and be like, okay, check this out. What do you think about it? What are some things that you think that I can make this look more creative? But I also want to let you know, say I'm putting send it back right there. I want you to know that sometimes less is more. So the more stuff you put in there, sometimes it can get, your creativity is important, but you don't want it to get too busy, if you will. So with your logo, you're just trying to tie it down. So when you add it to other projects, digital projects, then it works out really well. Now we will turn this in. So what we're going to do is click the download button, as you see here, and I will save it as a JPEG. You can save it as a PNG. They're both picture files. Now, what I forgot to do, and I want to make sure, is you're going to label this your last name, your first name, and main logo. Now, I probably should have done that at the beginning, but that's okay. The reason you want to label it is because when you download it, it'll maintain that. You don't want it to say untitled. So I'm going to click it again. I'm going to leave it as PNG. It says best for images. I'm going to click download. All right, great. Now I'm going to go back into, and I could have just hit the A there, but I'm going to go back into Adobe. You don't have to add a new tab. You can just go back to your home. But what up here you're going to type in. There's sometimes it pops up for you. Sometimes you got to go up to the search bar, and you're going to go up to the search bar and type in remove background. Sometimes you can find it easily, but sometimes it hides on you. I don't know why. It usually it's right there, but in this case, I'm not sure where it is. So I'm going to go back up there and type in remove background. So what you're going to do there with remove background is when you click, like in this case, if you're on the PC, you're just drag and drop. If you're on your Chromebook, you're going to click on that and hit recents, and then it should be labeled. Now, here's where I want you to download it with a transparent background. Don't put a background on it. Make sure it's transparent. So when I look at it here, you can see that now I can't really see my background real well. That's because you don't have it on a document yet. You don't have it on a design or project. And then at that point, I need you to save that to your Google Drive. Okay. You have a folder that you need to save it to, and I will show you the folder that you can save it to. Everybody has a folder on Google Drive, right? Where we will save it for each class. Okay. But make sure you have it saved. This is your main logo. That way, anytime you type in main logo, it'll pop up. Okay. So there's my recents. I click on it, and that's what it should look like. Okay. Okay, so now that we are at Canvas, so you go to your course, whatever course you have. In this case, I am at modules. Now, a lot of the assignments will be assignments based on formative and summative. So I will put it in modules for week 1, and it's called main logo, transparent background. Okay, or 10 points. And if you notice, I'll put January 9th because some people are in and out, some people are absent. Gives you a couple days to make sure you turn it in, and it's going to lock it after that point. Okay. So I'm going to double click that. I'm going to show you the process on how you turn it in. Okay. So basically, what you're going to do is you've already downloaded it. You're going to click up because it's an image file. You're going to upload it like so, and then you're going to drag and drop that here. So in this case, if I've got a download or whatever, you drag the file there and then submit the assignment. It's pretty simple on that. Okay. That's how you would turn it in. So when you look at some of the grades and some of the students that have already turned them in, I'll go through here. Here is Aliana. Look, it says main logo. There's some of the. So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll put the 10 out of 10 and move on. Now there are some folders that I want to show you that we're going to use for these classes. Okay, so I also, as a to help you, I'm going to give everybody access. So, for example, if you're in 4th period, you will go in here, and I'm going to add a. I'm just going to call this. I'm going to say 202619. What that means is 2026 January 9th. Okay, and I'm going to say it main logo. And the reason I do this is because when I hit view like that, it keeps everything organized. Okay, it keeps everything organized. So if you notice, like 2025 1219 animal project, the 4th period class is working on that. So what students are going to do, like in this case, I want you to put your logo here. Now, that being said, with the logo, this is what it should look like. So I'm going to go back to my Adobe Express. Okay, you can get there a couple ways. All right, so I'm going to go here, Adobe Express. I'm going to pull up my logo. And if you hear my dogs barking, I'm sorry, but they're barking a little bit in the background, which is okay. So let's go to my home and find, I got a bunch of different logos. Let me use this one. Okay. And I'm going to download it. Okay. And I want to skip tour. I'm going to hit download. I'll leave it as PNG, download, and now it's there. Okay, so if you're on the PC, you'll just drop and drag from there. If you're not, you're going to go to, let me put that in. You're going to go to new, file upload. Now, in this case, I'm using a Mac, but if you do a file upload, you go to recents, your most recent file that you downloaded, it'll be there. Okay. So in this case, this should be McGuire Jeremy, and I'm going to relabel that as main logo. Now, if you don't have your last name, first name, it's going to be hard for me to show it. It's going to be hard, to demonstrate it, because when I click on the icons, I should be able to see all the logos there, and it should be alphabetical based on the class. That will help me. Okay. Now, as far as the main logo, it says 2026 1-9. This is for fourth period. So that's the example of how I want you to turn it in.